Michelin-starred chefs in Dubai are cutting their prices for the first time in their careers. That single sentence tells you everything about what has happened to one of the world's most spectacular restaurant industries, and almost nothing about why. Dubai's restaurant sector was already running on margins of 8 to 11% before a single missile was intercepted over the city. No cushion, no reserve. The entire model had one assumption baked into every lease, every menu price, every license issued. The tourists will always come. When they stopped coming, the math collapsed instantly. Today we're going to look at two things Dubai's restaurant machine was never supposed to admit: the tourist dependency that left 13,000 restaurants with no local foundation to fall back on, and the rent and fee structure that was already quietly breaking the sector before any alarm ever sounded. Let's start with what this looked like before the crisis. Dubai built the most spectacular restaurant industry on earth. 13,000 food and drink establishments packed into a city of under 4 million residents, with more restaurants per capita than anywhere on earth except Paris. In May 2025, 2 Dubai restaurants earned 3 Michelin stars, the first in the city's history. The headlines wrote themselves: a global culinary capital, the future of fine dining. And if you looked at the numbers, you understood why. On average, tourists visiting Dubai spend more than 5 times what visitors spend in Saudi Arabia or in the United States, according to global restaurant consultant Aaron Allen. When your customer base spends at that level, you can make money even with thin margins. The business model wasn't just viable, it looked unstoppable. Here is what was underneath it. Dubai has roughly 9 expatriate residents for every Emirati citizen. Most of its private sector workforce are migrants on temporary contracts. The Tourism Bureau's own data showed Dubai's 827 hotels running at 86% occupancy as recently as January 2026. That constant flow of hotel guests was filling the tables. The restaurants were not serving a city, they were serving a transit point, a place where people arrived from somewhere else, spent lavishly, and left. The local customer base was never the foundation. It was the fallback. Then the fallback was tested. Hotel occupancy fell from 86% in January 2026 to an estimated 15 to 20% by March, according to Mamoun Hamidan, Chief Business Officer at Wego, one of the region's largest online travel agencies. TUI Group, Europe's largest travel company, suspended every Dubai-inclusive package. MSC Cruises pulled every vessel from Gulf itineraries. AirDNA reported 226,500 short-term rental booking cancellations across the UAE between February 28 and March 29 alone. The tourists didn't slow down. They stopped. And here's the moment where the model showed what it actually was. Michelin-starred restaurants in Dubai began cutting prices for the first time, according to restaurateur Nikki Ramchandani. The city's most highly credentialed restaurants began discounting because the tables were empty. Chef Gregoire Berger, who spent years as executive chef at Atlantis, the Palms' celebrated Oceano, before opening his own fine dining restaurant Kraken, told AGBI that when people are unsure about the future, luxury is the first thing they postpone, not groceries. He reduced his menu, adjusted staffing, and tightened purchasing. This is what a restaurant built for global tourism looks like when the global tourists leave. The World Travel and Tourism Council estimates the region is losing $600 million in visitor spending every single day the conflict continues. The UAE's estimated share is from $180 million to $200 million daily. Tourism accounted for nearly 13% of UAE gross domestic product in 2025, $72 billion and 925,000 jobs. Some high-end venues have reported footfall down 90%. Revenue losses at some hospitality establishments are exceeding 70%. Panchali Mahendra, Chief Executive Officer of Atelier House Hospitality, whose portfolio includes the Michelin-starred 11 Woodfire, told AGBI directly that not a lot of self-funded restaurants would have the bandwidth to sustain for 6 months without cash flow. There will be a significantly higher number of restaurants that probably will close down by summer this year. Not might close, will close. But understand what this is. The war didn't create the vulnerability. It exposed it. Because the sector was already carrying a wound. And that wound has a second layer. Before any conflict began, before any missile alert sounded over the city, Dubai's restaurant industry was already failing at a rate nobody was allowed to say out loud. The Associated Press investigated Dubai's restaurant sector in July 2025. Their findings were precise. Annual rents for restaurant space in downtown Dubai and prime areas top $100 per square foot, on par with the most expensive commercial real estate in London and Manhattan. According to AGBI reporting an Atelier House CEO Panchali Mahendra, those rents have doubled since 2009, in a sector where margins were already 8 to 11%. The math was broken before the tourists ever stopped coming, and then Dubai kept adding restaurants. Almost 1,200 new licenses were issued in 2024 alone. The Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism declined to respond to the Associated Press about the sector's closure rate. That refusal is a data point of its own. Industry insiders estimate that 40 to 50% of Dubai restaurants fail within 2 years of opening. Nearly 1 in 2. Restaurant consultant Aaron Allen said operating expenses have more than doubled relative to sales since the 2009 financial crisis. His assessment of the Dubai restaurant market was that there were too many entrepreneurs with too much money, and they did not know what to do besides open restaurants. That is not a compliment. That is a diagnosis of an industry substituting capital for fundamentals. When tourist revenue disappeared, operators pivoted to delivery. They could not survive on it either. Nikki Ramchandani told AGBI that aggregator platform commissions, Talabat, Deliveroo, Careem can reach as high as 30% per transaction. If your operating margin on a dine-in table is 8 to 11% and delivery costs you 30% of the transaction, you are not surviving on delivery. You are losing money more slowly. The human cost of this structure was already visible before any conflict. In 2024, 17 food delivery couriers in Dubai died in traffic accidents, according to Khaleej Times. Migrant workers on motorbikes were racing through gridlock with almost no legal protections, tight delivery windows, and an economic model that required their speed to function at all. The restaurants were outsourcing the impossible margin problem to the most vulnerable people in the supply chain. That is what the delivery economics actually look like, not an app. A person on a bike, in traffic, at 11 p.m. For a system that still did not work. Now the conflict has compressed every existing pressure simultaneously. Salary cuts of up to 30% have been implemented across hospitality. Staff are on unpaid leave. Newly hired workers are leaving the country entirely. Dubai had already climbed to 15th on Mercer's Global Cost of Living, ranking in 2024. Salaries were already not keeping pace with costs before any of this began. The workers, who make restaurants run, have no reserve either. These are two crises at once. One is a war that evaporated the tourist market overnight, and the other is a structural model that was consuming itself from the inside long before any alarm sounded. The question now is not just when Dubai's restaurant industry comes back, it's what it comes back as. The restaurants surviving right now are the ones with a genuine local customer base, neighborhood institutions that never depended on a hotel guest walking in from the lobby. They exist. They were there before the Michelin inspectors arrived and before the food bloggers found them. They are the ones that will still be there after this. The sector that was built around spectacle, around gold-dusted dishes and underwater lounges and Instagram-optimized dining rooms, was running on borrowed time before the tourists were ever frightened away. If you've worked in Dubai's restaurant industry, as a chef, a manager, a server, a delivery rider, or if you own or operate a venue that's navigating this right now, I want to hear what the inside of this actually looks like. The The numbers tell one story. The people living it tell another. Leave it in the comments. And if understanding what's actually happening behind the headlines of the Gulf's economy matters to you, subscribe, because this story is far from over.